This meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education is now called to order. I'd like everyone to please rise and join us in the pledge. It will be led by our student board members.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Gorski, roll call, please.
Mrs. Arminio.
Here.
Mr. Braverman. Here. Mrs. DeMayo.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Here.
Mr. Nostine.
Here.
Mrs. Carino.
Here.
Mr. Ryback.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
And Mr. Rutsky. Board President, you have a quorum present this evening. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted December 9th, 2016 at all schools, the Home News Tribune, Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you very much. And now we have our student board members report.
Okay, so the first thing I also mentioned at the last meeting is about the high school marching band. I mentioned that they were going to go to Hawaii for their trip to play at the Pearl Harbor anniversary, and they just came back a few days ago, and from everything I've heard, it went really well, and all the kids had a lot of fun while they were there. Also, next week on Thursday after school, the high school's Science National Honor Society is going to be holding an alumni STEM panel event where they're going to have people who've graduated from the high school in the past couple of years come back and kind of just talk about their experiences in college and where they're going and what they're doing in terms of the STEM field right now.
Thank you.
The FBLA will be holding a family karaoke night this Friday in the high school, and the drama club cabaret night will be on Monday, December 19th in the high school commons.
Thank you very much. Moving right along, we now have a presentation of the 2014-15 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Gerard Stankiewicz of the firm of Samuel Klein & Company. Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the board.
Does he need a mic?
To the public. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
As we do every year, I'm here to present to the full board the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the year ended June 30th, 2016. The financial report is the thicker of the two documents that you have with you or have been presented with, and it contains financial information regarding the district, but also inside of it is our audit opinion, which is really what we are hired to do by the board, as our position is answerable to the board. The annual audit is done on the financial records of the district. It's done in accordance with the statutes. It's an opportunity to annually measure the operation of the district, and in addition to that, to report to the board of any findings relative to any procedural deficiencies that were incurred by the board. I'm sorry, by the business office. And just to get to the bottom line with it, the independent auditor's opinion that's contained inside this document contains an unmodified opinion, which means that the records presented were presented properly and fairly present the financial condition of the district for the fiscal year ended. The other document, which is the thinner of the two, is actually my representation to the board relative to the operation of the business office. Now, just as a way of a quick review, the audit process, and again, an audit is a sample, so we will, upon receiving the records from the business office, we will select samples of transactions that we like to test, and we test them for various what we call attributes, that there's certain things, certain items that have to be in place, and we test each one of those transactions for that. We run a random sample of, let's say, for example, the expenditures for the period July 1st of 15 through June 30th of 16, based on the check register. It's very simple, based on the check register prepared by the district business office for all the payment of the bills that are incurred by the district. We'll select samples from those records. We'll test those records. We do the same with the payroll. We'll get the first payroll check of the year and the last payroll check of the year, and we'll run a random sample in between that. Auditors sample, and we use random number generators to prepare and select which transactions we want to test. And again, we test the payroll items for various items that are supposed to be in place prior to the execution of that particular transaction. And I will try and review that real quickly. But prior to that, we do sit down with the business office and we will review the procedures. We'll review the personnel. We'll see if there's any new personnel. New personnel matter because if they're in a key spot within the district, for example, like a new payroll clerk or payroll accountant that we're not familiar with, that kind of raises the risk of the audit. You know, we don't know the person, we don't know their capabilities. We don't have that case here, but in a district, that's what we do in advance. We review the procedures, we review the policies, we review the people. We will then, in my office, make a determination how we're going to test, what we're going to test, and how much we're going to test. Same goes for expenditures. Those are the two big areas within the district that have the most activity. There's a lot of little transactions and there's a lot of big transactions within those, but we have to run initially a random sample. We also test other items within, for example, the expenditures. We will look at big dollar items, big ticket items. We'll also test for health benefits, making sure that everybody who is on the health benefits bill is also an employee of the district. We'll test for maintenance expenses, making sure that the district is investing properly in the maintenance that the state wants you to invest, because you received several years ago a very large grant towards the high school. Well, part of that deal is you have to invest in the facilities to keep it maintained. They have an investment, they want you to invest as well. We'll look at travel expenses on a sample basis. Every month you pass a resolution authorizing people to go to various seminars and travel. We'll check to see that those are properly authorized. We'll also check to see that you're in compliance with the local public school contracts law. Okay? That is, what we'll do is we will get a list of all the vendors. We'll schedule them out. We will look at all the vendors who are greater than $40,000 and determine whether, if they were required to be bid, that they were properly bid. Okay? And just for the record, we had no bid violations. We had no public school contract violations. I'll get to that in the end, just to sum it up. We also will look at transportation bills. We'll look at contracts to make sure they're properly executed. We'll look at tuition bills. The district spends, like most districts, a lot of money on special education. We make sure that there's contracts in place with each of the private schools, and that there are at least good records that we get on a monthly basis from those schools. Capital expenditures, we look at those. We make sure that they make it to the fixed asset list. We make sure that they are proper capital expenditures. We also make sure those capital expenditures were properly bid. We'll test your transfers. You approve resolutions for monthly transfers. We'll check to see that if a transfer made it to the books, that it was also approved by the board. There was no exceptions in that case. So when it comes to expenditures, the key things to look for are, and I would advise any board this, and I try to keep it concise as possible, we do test various components of each transaction, but the key items are that each transaction is properly documented, that there's proper approval to purchase the item, which is most important, that it's properly coded in terms of which accounting line item it gets charged to, which budgetary line item it gets charged to, and that the bills are cut off properly with respect to the fiscal year. So we're not paying in September of 16, we're not paying May of 16's electric bill and charging it to next year's budget. We have not had any problems, at least as long as I've been here, in that area with cutting off the bills. So there's various things that we test for. We're all in agreement here, at least my staff and I, in formulating our opinion as to the operation, that there were no violations of any of the items that we look for. That's a good thing. And I think that that's a tribute to having proper personnel in those positions within the business office. We have a Laura Allen, who's a former public accountant who monitors the general ledger and the cash balances daily. We have a Jerry Tagg, who knows the public school contracts law quite well, and has his thumb on a lot of the expenditures that are made here. And we've spent a lot of time with Jerry. He knows the law. Okay, we have a pretty good setup right there. We have good people in the payroll department down. They work down in the basement in the next room from us. So they did a really good job this year. There was a little, problem with the payroll vendor that was quite nerve-wracking for everyone, and they recovered from that quite nicely. I mean, we did some extra work in that area that they worked out very nicely. We want to make sure that everything was correct in spite of the breakdown of the software. So with regards to expenses, everything worked out nicely. And again, we test, we don't check every item, okay? And again, we test from the runs, computer runs and the computer reports that are provided from the business office, okay? The other aspect we check for, which is big, is payroll. We'll review the payroll. We will ascertain that each payroll transaction, not everyone, but each one that we select to sample, that the most important, that the gross payroll is proper, that there's proper withholdings, most especially in the area of health benefits contributions. We'll make sure that the proper documentation is on file, for example, W-4s, I-9s. A lot of it's compliance testing, just making sure there's something there. But the biggest part of it is that we test the salaries. We found them on a test basis to be all proper for the base pays. For extra pays, we also, on each transaction, if there's extra pay on a particular transaction, we'll check to see that that documentation is proper. We'll also run a test on a couple payrolls for part-time and overtime. A lot of times when you work in a school district, everybody focuses on the base pay. Well, there's also a lot of extra pay going on too, for class coverage, for athletic coverage, for overtime for custodians or maintenance men. So we check a couple payrolls to make sure that that the hours are recorded properly and that the rate is proper, okay? So we have good results from that. We also check to see that the payroll taxes are paid timely and properly. That's a big area that, one little slip up and all of a sudden you have a fine from the IRS, and while a lot of times they're very forgiving, sometimes they're not. We have not had a problem in that area. So with regards to the expenditures and the payroll, we were very happy with those results. We also spent time looking at the cafeteria fund, the food service fund. We have access to, I believe they're Metz Culinary, the company that does our food service. We'll look at their pay. They are very generous to us. We look at their payroll records. We don't question really, how much they're paying their people, but if they're claiming a certain number of hours that they're charging to this district, we'll go through a sample of payroll, certain payrolls, and check to see that the hours are properly recorded. We'll flip through and look through their food bills, which are probably one of the biggest components of what we get billed for, just to make sure that there's nothing that looks like that it should not be charged to us. Pretty much it's pretty cut and dry, but I believe, again, we have our own in-house food service director, and I think she goes through those items with a very fine-tooth comb prior to presenting the bills to the business office for payment. So we got good results out of that. Your food service operation is big. We verify the meal counts, the daily meal counts, which flow to the monthly meal counts, which flow through to the federal claims that we make to get reimbursed. We found that to be very good and accurate. So those tests are in the areas that are the biggest areas that we look at, okay? We do spend time looking through the student activity funds. It's a very tiny component of the operation. We rely that it's being audited internally prior to us getting here, because while it is a lot of money within that fund, it's not a lot of money in the overall world of the district, but the business office does audit that internally prior to us getting here. We would prefer that they catch an error before we catch an error. So they do monitor those, and I know a lot of money runs through those funds, probably in excess of $1 million in total. Each one of the schools has their own bank account, and I know every time a new person starts, I know they get instruction as to what the proper thing to do and what is not to do. The big thing there is that whoever is the controller of that fund within that school is buying items that relate to student activities and not to items that could otherwise run through the budget. So we're good in that regard. We also check you receive, quite frankly, not a lot of state aid compared to other places, so the biggest area we have to check for is your biggest area of state aid, which is the special education categorical aid. The administration of your tuition contracts, which tie into funds going to the special schools, we find that to be proper. I mentioned that previous. Same between that and the IDEA funds, which is federal money. We have to do a little bit of extra work in that area because of the dollar threshold that you receive. You receive more than $750,000 on a grant, we have to spend a little time looking into it over and above what we normally do. Again, we found that all to be proper. Another big area that we look at is your enrollment count, which takes place on October 15th. That particular process worked very nicely as well. It's important that the proper personnel be empowered to oversee the final filing of those products, and I think that the board has done a good job in allowing people to do that, which is why we end up with not a lot of audit problems in this district. In fact, we audit with none. So, I mean, that all worked out very nicely. So what happens is we do our testing, but we also get presented with general ledgers, revenue reports, receivable reports, expenditure reports, payroll reports. So we start to assemble those into report format, which results in this large document here, okay? The way an audit works is that management, which is the two gentlemen whose first names are Mike to my left, okay, and they're the head of those departments, they present us with these financial records. So an audit is based on management's representations and presentation of the records. So we get that information, we go through it, we start looking at it, we question it, we analyze it, we tie the numbers in to make sure that they're proper, and we convert that into a report format, okay? Our role in the audit is to give an opinion, okay? And if you would like, I just want to reference you to page 10, if you have your books. If you don't, I know everyone got their book, I assume. Yes. Page 10 kind of breaks out everything that I'm saying. For example, we're engaged to report on the financial statements. Management obligation is to present us with the records. Our responsibility is to the board is to give an opinion. And our opinion is based on all the testing and all the questioning and the time we spend here is that the records present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental funds, business funds, and each major fund of the district. Okay, so we're happy with the result. And here's one more most important thing. And the general ledgers as presented for audit agree on a monthly basis to the bank reconciliations. That is first and foremost, okay? And what that means really is your general ledger is reliable. Quite frankly, in our world, every other number could be wrong, which in your case is not, but as long as the bank ties to the general ledger, we have a good starting point, okay? So, but we actually like it to be where every balance sheet account is proper, and in your case, the records as presented, every balance sheet account was proper. We did not have, we hear auditors and accountants make journal entries. We didn't have any audit-related journal entries. Audit-related journal entries are as a result of either an oversight or a boo-boo that we say, hey, we want to add this to your financials as presented. We don't have that situation here. So in the end, we have the independent auditor's opinion indicates that the records present fairly in all respects. The rest of the document contains management discussion and analysis, which if you are familiar with any corporate, that would start on page 13. Management discussion and analysis is actually the board's management's representation, not to us, but to the board, that converts this financial report into more English in terms of more understandable. It talks about the highlights of the district for the year, which actually start on the bottom of 13. Those are not our representations, those are the board's. That's keeping the board primarily and the public informed as to various items that happened in the district during the year. It was a result of actually the Enron situation that every audit has to have a management discussion and analysis now included in their report, and we've complied with that. It's a rather lengthy document. Some of it is just a lot of words that are required to be there by the lords of the profession, but in your case, you have key financial highlights up front on page 13 and 14 and 15, which maybe Michael can elaborate on a little later, but it talks about some of the significant events that happened in the district this year. Has nothing to do with the audit, but it has to do with the district tooting its horn about positive things, and sometimes it talks about negative things, okay? But that's not normally the case. So that's the MD&A, which is the management discussion analysis, which tries to make it a little easier for board members and the public to read the audit. And actually, this year we added a thing where we have some side-by-side comparisons, which are on page 21, which talk about, charges for services and property taxes and tuition, federal and state aids on a side-by-side basis, and then the various expense categories. It also has a pie chart that shows you the breakdown of the expenses, and it's got expanded information on capital assets of the district as well as debt of the district. Now, that information is also contained in the financial statements as well, but it's broken out to be a little more understandable for board members and the public. Inside the financial statement itself, the CAFRA, is actually 3 different types of accounting, and it's actually very confusing to anyone, even myself. There's, for example, there's the district-wide financials, which converts your basic financial information into a more corporate model. It adds in depreciation, it adds in accounting for sick pay, and somebody somewhere decided 10 years ago, this is what we want to see, we have to comply with it. It's a little misleading, I think, but it does also include this recently enacted pension liability that needed to be booked in here as well. The pension is a theoretical calculation as to what the district owes for its pension for PERS employees only, and it's based on interest rates, it's based on discount rates, it's based on mortality rates, it's based on certain pay raises for people, and that part is only for the portion that the district is on the hook for, which is the public employees retirement people. The TPAF, Teachers Pension Annuity Fund people, that is an obligation of the state, and therefore it is a legal and moral obligation of the state. It's not on our books. We disclose a number that it is, which is our allocated share, but it actually appears on the state's CAFRA as to what their legal obligation is towards the TPAF. It doesn't make it to our financials. We have also, and I'll get to it if you turn to page 36, our food service operation. There's a $2.5 million operation, and it had about $130,000 of profit. I looked at it as break even because in another year you could lose a few bucks. You don't need to make money on the food service, but you just can't lose a lot of money. Okay, and we don't have the case where we're losing. Okay, we always have a nice cushion there in case the board opts to want to do some improvements or maybe change things within the cafeteria, but it's so regulated, it's very difficult to do too much. And you have to follow the regulations of the government in that, and also any excess revenues in that fund have to stay within that fund. The other 2 funds, which is Child Care and Falcon Care, though, which is on the same exhibit, had a very nice year, made a nice recovery, and eliminated some of the cash advances that were paid out a few years ago to the fund. So those 2 particular funds did very well. Okay, so, and I think in another year, the Child Care will be out of the red forever, and then the Falcon Care, which makes, is a nice operation and a nice service, is another good item. And that just has to be monitored, make sure that it doesn't lose nor gain too much. The rest of the document has notes to financial statements, which are an explanation of the accounting requirements that we're supposed to follow, and we do follow. Okay, it's all pretty much standard wording. If you hold school districts side by side across the country, they probably have verbatim, word for word is the same thing. Sometimes we add different things in there because you got to tailor the report a little bit to the district. There may be a situation going on that needs to be disclosed. We don't really have any of that. And it talks about, the notes to financial talk about debt. It talks about the pension. It talks about your risk management, interfunds, and it talks about things like your excess surplus. And it has a lot of standard disclosures in it. For example, economic dependency. Sure, we get state aid, we get federal aid, we're dependent on them. If they go away, we have a problem, but it just has to be disclosed. The rest of the document, and actually I just want to point out the allocation of our fund balance. It's got various components. Our main operating funds have encumbrances of $30,000, excess surplus of $6 million, capital reserve of $975,000. Excess surplus that's locked away for the 16-17 budget is $5 million, and our 2% unassigned amount, which is what we can keep maximum of our own money, used to be known as the free balance, is $1.9 million. So we have surplus, but each component is basically spoken for, with the exception of our 2% money, which is ours if we need it to use it, and we can dip into it if we have to. Other pieces of the document are just the details of what's summarized in the front end, and they just contain required disclosures. For example, it talks about our capital projects. It talks about our fiduciary funds, which is the student activity and the payroll funds. It also talks about, it has in it the repayment schedules for our debt for the various schools that were built. It has lease payment information in it. But one other section that contains a lot of information about Monroe is in the back section. It's called the statistical data section. And again, most of this stuff is a joint venture between ourselves and the district, and most of the data is provided by the district. We kind of just put it together in report format, readable format. But there's a lot of information in the back section that talks about Monroe itself. Income, population, ratable base, allocation of the ratable base. Excuse me. So in this thicker of the two documents, the only real, excuse me, piece of information that belongs to us is our independent auditor's opinion. We actually have three opinions. One on the financial statements, which is unmodified, excuse me, and one on your internal controls, which reveals no deficiencies. Yes, and one, I'm good, thank you. And one on your management of your federal and state grants, which again is unmodified and shows no deficiencies. So this document here is a joint venture between us and the business office in terms of we put it together, we put it into readable format, accounting format, we put all the notes in there. We do want to thank the people in the business office, specifically the payroll department, the accounts payable people, Laura Allen, everybody in that room was, in the business room we call it, was very cooperative and, you know, receptive to anything that we requested and were able to provide. And again, like I said, I give kudos to Jerry Tagg. We have no vid violations, probably because of his oversight. And you know, a lot of money goes through these books, and in my mind, it's pretty well monitored. The other document, thinner of the two, is my representation to the board. Everything I talked about, where I talk about how positive all the results were, is kind of summarized in this thinner of the two documents. And inside this document is contained information about our calculation of our surpluses. It has meal counts for items that we claimed. It has our net cash resources for our food service department. And it contains an item signed by me that indicates that there's no audit recommendations. The business office has been aggressive in the last several years in monitoring and keeping up to date with all the trends in the industry in terms of documentation and all the various accounting and auditing requirements. It helps when you have a couple CPAs on the inside because they know pretty much as what we go through and what the requirements are. And that just serves to strengthen the controls. But we do want to thank Laura Allen because she was really the go-between for us in terms of any accounting information that we needed. So in the end, we have no recommendations and we have an unmodified opinion. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any of the questions now.
Before we have questions, I would like to thank you on behalf of the board for certainly giving this report tonight and for all the effort you and the people in your employ do. I would also like to thank Mr. Gorski and his staff for all the work they do, keeping us on track so that we do not have any recommendations. So thank you both.
You know, it's incumbent upon the board to make sure that there's proper staffing, and I think that's been the case. And
thank you. Any questions from board members?
What percentage of total transactions were sampled?
Oh, gosh. I would say probably in the neighborhood of 5%, maybe a little higher. But we also looked at dollars, too. You know, I mean, we probably looked at a good $10 or $20 million worth of expenses.
Is that, like 5%, is that the industry standard?
That's probably above the industry standard.
Okay.
A lot of firms come in, and I don't know if you're an accountant or whatever, but a lot of
No.
them come in and they'll do the bare minimum.
Right.
Let's do the sample and get out because it meets the standards of the industry.
Okay.
We haven't done that. I don't do that at any job. We kind of just, you know, do a little bit more to make sure. I need to get a real good comfort level. Sometimes the statistical sampling is a wonderful thing, okay? But I just like to look at different things myself. Like for example, with payroll this year, we went and looked at a bunch of other people over and above what we were required to do. And by all means, we do check the salary of the superintendent. If it doesn't come up in the sample, superintendent, the business administrator, and everybody in the payroll department, we check their salaries over and above the sample. Then this year, we decided to check I think we checked the nurses and we checked a bunch of other, I selected some people that I had my people check, just double check these, make sure that there's nothing out of line. And we also had to we did a little bit of extra work too on that March 23rd payroll, which was the last one with the old payroll service. So we put a little extra time in that only because I personally needed to get a comfort level. So, yeah, some of the, I don't know, I don't like to toot my horn or brag, but I think probably looking at a good representative sample of the transactions. And people might say that, hey, that's a little high, 5%'s a little high, but, if I add it all up, it's probably in that range, because we'd only look at what we sample, but we have to look at travel bills, maintenance bills, tuition bills. It all adds up,
Right.
so,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Any other
Michelle?
board member with a question?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Russo.
Sir?
Mr. Russo.
You did say that we get very little state aid.
Yeah, right. Now, that's just a comment. That's not an audit issue, but looking at it, we don't, and it's more of a management setup. I just happen to notice that considering the district size, it just seemed, it's low. And I know, we know it's low. Everybody, I think, here knows it's low, and I know Mr. Gorski is a student of the amount. He knows a significant amount of more than I do about why.
And everything looks good. Anything that we could be doing better? Everything looks good.
Yeah.
Anything we can do?
We had all good results from every single one of the tests, and even of our expanded tests. Everything is presented properly. And like I said, the main thing is cash is tying out monthly to the penny, and as a prior BA said, cash is king.
Yeah, no, I have no doubt of that. Is there anything that we could do better?
I think if you just keep making sure that the business office, I have to be partial to the business office. I know you have to spend on education, but I think making sure that the business office is properly staffed is the most important thing you can do.
Any other board members? On any
I just have a question in the smaller book, page 3. Just sort of an explanation between the payroll account and payroll agency account in the first paragraph.
Payroll account is there's two bank accounts. The payroll net pay goes into one bank account, and the withholdings, which goes into the agency account. Okay,
For the benefits.
that's what it's called. Yeah, we have to keep a separate account for the withholdings. In there is everything that's withheld, and when it's withheld, it goes in. It doesn't stay long, okay? Because the way we do payroll, we have to pay. For example, federal government has to be paid within 3 days, and the state has to be paid. So the money goes in and it goes right out. But it has to be segregated between withholdings and net pay.
And our pension, our PERS contribution is up to date and in good standing, right?
Oh, yeah,
We've
our
always
pension
had-
bill is paid on April 1st of every year. And trust me, if you don't pay it, they come after you with a vengeance, okay?
Well, we won't want that. We would want to just make sure it's taken care of anyway.
Oh, don't worry, I'm sure that somewhere behind the scenes, if we don't pay the pension, they'll deduct our monthly state aid, which again is not significant. But no, that's all paid up to date and timely. The withholdings are paid timely as well, that's important. Most especially federal and state. Other places, they won't penalize you, a government agency will. Other payments go to the 401k, 403Bs, and to all the different, the unions and all that stuff. They don't penalize you if you're late, but you don't want to be late.
But we're not late.
No,
Okay,
no.
Good.
One more question. The debt service, 10 million per year,
I believe that's what the number is.
roughly 10. Is it high percentage-wise compared to the budget?
The only thing I can say about that is that you are within your debt, you're within your allowable borrowing capacity. As to whether it's high or not, that's not an audit opinion, but it's a number, and like I said, the only thing I know is that we're within our borrowing capacity. And when you ask that question, or anyone asks that question, you have to evaluate the district and actually evaluate what was built with it, and it could be high. I mean, I have other districts that have, they have no debt, but they have old schools, okay? And their debt is low as compared to the overall percentage. So to say it's high or not, I can't really say that. I do know we are within the borrowing capacity as certified as of June 30th.
And that's debt service, that's interest and some amortization, right? That's not our total debt. That's
No,
just
that's
the
just-
cost of paying off our debt.
To meet that obligation for that fiscal year.
Right.
It's a predetermined schedule. Once the board sells the bonds, you are locked into a permanent schedule. and you can't be late, and by the way, we're not late. And it gets wired in on the required day. So yeah, it's a predetermined schedule. That is actually bid and negotiates, it's actually bid and locked in. We dictate the days we're gonna pay, and then someone comes and bids for those bonds, and sure, we pay them timely.
May I? I was happy in one of the committee meetings that I had asked Mr. Gorski, every year I think I ask him what our total debt payment is, and I found out that I think we're about 20 million less than yeah. So I was pleased that we're actually bringing our debt down. We had, I mean, I remember back when we were about $150 million in debt, and I think we're now at 132. 132 million. So we are paying our obligations down. Thank you.
Any other board member? Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank Mr. Stankiewicz. It's been a pleasure to work with him, and this is my third CAFR, and it really is impressive to see the amount of diligence that goes into this. And I always think if only you worked for Enron, we'd be so much ahead of the game at this point. And also, as chair of the Finance Committee, I have the privilege of every month, as part of the chair's responsibility, I need to go in and I need to do a super mini audit of the financials on a monthly basis, and it really gave me a whole different insight into what goes on in the administration. Ms. Laura Allen is just phenomenal on what she does. The level of detail that she provides for me it blows me away. I mean, because part of the process is there's invoicing. I see the invoice, I see the billing, I see the timesheets if it's a public contract with service, but most importantly, the very last page, there's our agenda highlighted where we approved it. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. And I think that's a credit to Mr. Gorski and the whole administrative staff, that this level of detail is very, it speaks highly of them. And the fact that we got another unmodified, CAFR is phenomenal, and so I'd like to thank everybody for that. One question, and this maybe go to Mr. Gorski, would this be possible to put this on the web, on our site as a PDF?
Yes. I have this in PDF format, and I was going to mention that during my brief comments next. Both the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and the Auditor's Management Report are both the audits of your financial statements for your district activity for the year. They belong to you. They're accessible to you. If Mr. Nostine wishes, I could post it on the website, or like previous years, if anybody wants to send me an email, I could send it to you, but I'm happy to do either one.
Thank you very
You
much.
could also find it on the DOE website. They now have them all uploaded by December 5th. They should be on there. Well, I know they're on there, but if you can't find it on the local website, it is on the state website.
Mr. Mayor?
I have one quick last question. This might be more for Mr. Gorski. How are we rated in terms of our credit worthiness?
Monroe Township Board of Education has the very highest bond rating of any school district in the state. And the state of New Jersey just got a downgrade, which affects all public school districts. And when we go out for another referendum soon, we will be evaluated by Standard & Poor's once again. And this audit, and the fact that we have no audit recommendations again, does positively affect the bond rating, for sure. If we were to accumulate audit recommendations, which is not uncommon in other districts, especially if they're not resolved through a corrective action plan into the next year, it does downgrade the bond rating, because the investors feel that they're putting up a lot of capital to buy bonds, and the internal controls or the financials in the district are not up to par. That is not the case here, as Mr. Stankiewicz said. We have the very highest bond rating attainable.
Thank you.
Any other board member with a question? Mr. Gorski, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, if I may, 2 minutes and not a second more, because we have a lot of business to go through tonight. But the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and the Auditor's Management Report, I will post on the district website. I encourage everybody to go through here, because it's not just a boring financial statement. There's a plethora of other statistical and demographic information that's very important to this district contained in this report. It's an encyclopedia of very good information. This really is the responsibility of the district's management, Dr. Kozak, Laura Allen, and me. The only part of this report that is the auditor's responsibility is a very important piece where the auditor gives an opinion on the financial statements. And once again, it's determined that they're in compliance with generally accepted auditing standards. And through his testing, which goes above the requirements of the American Institute of CPAs, and I could tell you certain other areas, like all the IEPs were tested at 100%, all of the administrative payroll was tied out 100% from gross to net, that all the Chapter 78 deductions that we pay into health care contributions were 100% collected, which unfortunately you may have read in the paper is not always the case. Some districts did not do that, and they were written up for that. Also contained in the report is, on page 36, information on Falcon Care and Early Childhood Initiative. This was the inaugural year for Falcon Care, and Falcon Care turned in a very handsome profit of $412,000, and Early Childhood Enrichment was $114,000. That's over $500,000 of profit in two proprietary funds where the retained earnings from those are unrestricted and can be used for program enhancements or at the board's directive to reduce taxes or whatever you should want to do with it. We are making the most of seeking all of the external resources possible to help subsidize the resources in this district, because 89% of them fall on the backs of the taxpayers through an inequity in state aid funding. Excess surplus grew by $1 million over last year. That's evidence of the effective management of the budget throughout the year by Dr. Kozak, Dr. Alvik, and myself. Dr. Kozak initiated a purchase order freeze mid-year for all non-essential spending. All of that is being returned to the taxpayers through excess surplus. The outstanding debt, as Mrs. Arminio referenced, is $134,000. That's down $5 million from the previous year. That's $134 million of outstanding debt, down 5 from the preceding year. And that's been going down as you would expect. Anybody who has a mortgage knows you pay off principal every year and your principal balance goes down. The borrowing capacity in this district remains to be $158 million. So in consideration of a new referendum, which is desperately needed at this time, the board has $158 million available as of June 30. This figure changes every year with the amount of debt that gets paid off and other variables, but that's enough money to take care of any project that I would anticipate we would need. The unemployment in Monroe dropped to 5.3%. The cost per pupil has been flat for about the last 8 years, and this year the cost per pupil only increased 0.04%. And like I said, there is a great deal of information. I don't want to waste too much time on it tonight. I'll be happy to post it and you could pull it down at your leisure. But in conclusion, the continuance of perfect audits with no audit recommendations is the result of this board and administration's commitment to the students, taxpayers, and staff that every precious dollar, 89% of which comes from the local tax levy, is accounted for properly, spent in accordance with the budget and laws, and is safeguarded through exceptional internal controls. I would like to thank the Board of Education for committing all the resources necessary to ensure an effective business office, and again, especially Laura Allen, who does an exceptional job, and the taxpayers for supporting the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski, and thank you, Mr. Stankiewicz, very much.
Thank you.
Now have a resolution to be read by the Chair of the Finance Committee, Mr. Notstein.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. It is recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education accept and approve the comprehensive annual financial report and the auditor's management report on administrative findings, financial compliance and performance, and hereby approve and authorize the submission of the required corrective action plan to the county office, indicating that there are no recommendations for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2016.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? We could vote.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Yes. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
Yes.
Board President, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you again,
Thank you.
Mrs.
Have a nice
Stankiewicz.
holiday, everyone, and
Thank you.
Lou and Tom are leaving the board. Thank you for your support and good luck, and hope I don't not see you again.
Well, you provided a perfect segue for me into the next item, which is actually one of the more pleasurable tasks that I have as board president, and I'd like to ask the administrators to please join me in the front over here. Mr. Kaufman, Lou, you know, we all talk about giving back. You've been giving and giving and giving, 15 years worth, and what can we say but thank you? I know you not only served for 15 years, you were president of the board for 1 year, and I believe vice president for 4. And always making contributions. Your questioning shows so much thought, depth, and knowledge, and we all have so much respect for you as a board member and as a person. All we could say, as I said, is thank you very much, and we'd like to present you with this plaque. It reads, presented to Lou Kaufman in sincere appreciation for dedicated service to the students and schools of Monroe Township while serving as a board member for the Monroe Township Board of Education from 2001 to 2016. I thank you on behalf of this Board of Education and all the citizens. Thank you, Lou. And now I can ask Mr. Northstein, the Vice President of the Board. Tom, it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with you. You know, I don't know if everybody knows this, but we have a little thing between us because I call him our VIP VP because you are very important, Vice President. His knowledge base is incredible. There isn't anyone here that doesn't respect Tom's knowledge, his business acumen that he brings, his insight. And again, also, similar to Lou, the questions, the depth of thought, and what he gives to this community is invaluable. I'd like to present you also with this plaque presented to Tom Northstein in sincere appreciation for dedicated service to the students and schools of Monroe Township while serving as a board member of the Monroe Township Board of Education from 2014 2016. My friend, congratulations. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, board members and public. We're going to go back.
We collect a pension now, right? I put in for doubling our pension, but
Nothing.
Okay, moving along now, we have our committee reports. Any committee chair wanted to report? Mr. Kaufman.
find my little notes here. So we had a curriculum committee meeting this evening, and we reviewed the following things. We went over the Algebra 1, A and B, a new course proposal for AP Computer Science, and also a new course proposal for Rhythmic Dance elective. And I think we agreed that Greg Byer will do a rhythmic dance at the next curriculum committee meeting. That was a requirement. So make sure that carries over.
Yes.
Okay. We also had a presentation on Performance Matters, which is a program that we bought to run analytics against student data to see where we're doing well and where we can make improvements. And we also had a follow-up presentation on the IEC Club / course. We're moving forward with getting more details about this particular program. The committee asked that we just firm up a couple of more pieces of information. But I think overall, it's a new, innovative approach on looking at how we can deliver high-quality education and also utilize some of the wealth and experience of our residents. So it's just really, we're in a kind of a new territory here for education. So we want to make sure that we do it well, that it's properly vetted, and that we dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So I'm sure whoever picks this up will bring this forward, and we'll see where we go from here.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kalb? Any other committee chair wanting to report?
We had actually two finance committee meetings. We had one last week. It was a residency hearing for 3 students, which we will be discussing amongst the board this evening in closed session, and coming out of closed session with a resolution on those 3 students. And of course, the second part of the second meeting was for the comprehensive annual financial review, and we're not going to go into that anymore. That's it.
Question for Mr. Notstein.
I have a question.
Russo, you have a question? Was that a question?
No, I was going to ask him something about the financial
okay.
review, but I think I'll wait till.
Any other committee chair?
We had a personnel meeting, and what was said in personnel is confidential, so I can't really
Okay.
reveal any of what
That
we
was a
discussed.
confidential report.
That was a confidential report, but we had a meeting.
Mr. Braverman, did you want to say anything about buildings and
Oh,
grounds?
there's no change.
Okay. If you don't mind, in that case, I want to provide just a bit of an update on the referendum planning, which was discussed yesterday, and have a report I'd like to read to update everybody. Brinkerhoff Environmental Associates have completed the first phase of wetlands mapping of the 65-acre parcel at Church Road. The information has been transmitted to the project architect and civil engineer for evaluation on the feasibility of locating buildings at this site. Concurrently, the threatened and endangered species habitat assessment is ongoing. The preliminary report indicates that as many as 2 schools can be located on this site. However, the land has not been officially transferred to the township, which could further delay the process. And road widening, traffic lights, and water and sewer connections are additional considerations. Therefore, following a directive from the board to explore alternate sites, administration has been actively engaged in looking for alternate sites. We've engaged local realtors pursuing both listed and non-listed properties. Based upon direction from board legal counsel, we've expanded our search to areas outside of Monroe Township that might be viable for building. The architect has completed an inventory analysis of all district schools, confirmed all capacity generating spaces by current NJDOE standards, and generated functional capacity worksheets for each school building. This determines current functional capacity of the facility, which in turn allows us to determine unhoused student counts. Earlier today, the architect and administration met with representative of NJDOE, Department of School Facilities and Finance, to review our long-range facilities plan, submission, and our referendum planning and potential for state funding. The state representative acknowledged the work to date and indicated that they would be able to process our application for a school building referendum, provided the land continues to clear standard mandated regulatory reviews, example, wetlands. Ross Haber and Associates have also been working with administration and the Township Planning Department to update the demographic report, as well as explore options for alternate grade configurations. Dr. Alvick and Monroe Township High School administrators have been working with the architect on schematic design options for the proposed addition. Okay. Any other committee, any question for this?
Yes.
Ms. Arminio?
We had a, by request of some board members from last meeting, we had a request for a additional discussion on the nepotism policy. It was a bylaw 144, and Mr. Lou Kaufman's question about extending the time frame for some of the additional employees to 18 months. We had originally had just the board members and the superintendent having been involved in the nepotism policy and after 18 months, but we now have extended that by request of some of the board members. We had that discussion, so we have put that into the nepotism policy. The substantive change now makes the reading for this evening a first reading. It was a first reading in October. It was due to be a second reading in November. It was tabled. So it is, because of the substantive change, it is now a first reading. So it will be voted on this evening and then also again in January. So
Thank
it
you,
is
Ms.
on the
Arminia.
board.
Thank you. Any question for Ms. Arminia? Okay, I guess that ends the committee reports. We now have our first public forum. Let me say that members of the public that want to address the board, you have 3 minutes in total to do so. You can make a statement, ask all your questions. If you don't need the 3 minutes and you've finished with your statement or questions, your time will be up. And then if we can, we will respond. And if we need more time, we will get back to you if you just provide your information. When you come up, please state your name and address. Any member of the public interested in addressing the board concerning the agenda?
Good evening, Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Way. I was at the Buildings and Grounds and Transportation meeting last night, and there were a bunch of options being played around. One being bringing back the 6th grade to all of the elementary schools. Dr. Kozak, can you elaborate on how that will work, and have you researched the curriculum impact on doing so, as well as the staff needs for each of the schools?
This is, as you mentioned and you heard last night, it is one of the options. So until we determine if that is going to be a definitive plan to bring this, to keep the 6th grade really at the elementary schools, no, we haven't done that yet because that is only one of the options. And really, as you and I discussed, that would not be my first option to keep the 6th grade at the elementary. But a lot of it depends on what sites are available, what buildings are available, or what sites to put buildings and what kind of configuration we end up doing.
All right, and you keep saying we don't need trailers next year at the elementary schools. What about the middle school and the high school? What is the plan for next year there where the class sizes are reaching 36?
No, I just want to know, could you, if there's more questions, could you ask those questions now rather than go back and forth?
Well, I think the questions the answers determine my next question.
Well,
I have 3
I
minutes
need-
to ask questions,
What we're
right?
doing, though, Ms. Skirby, with all due respect, is to have people, to give people their full time, is to make the statement or ask their questions up front. We started doing that last month. I'd like to continue that this month.
Okay, well, that was a follow-up question to his answer.
I'm sorry, would you just state the question one more time, please?
I said you keep saying we don't need trailers at the elementary schools for next year. What about the middle school and the high school? What's the plan for next year where the class sizes are reaching over 36 and we have new developments that are going to be sending an influx of students into those schools next year at the middle and the high school?
Right now, although, yes, some of the class sizes are large at the middle school, we're very aware of that. Not all of the class sizes are that large. And right now, we do not have plans based on the information that we have received from our district administration and what we've looked at to put trailers in place for next year. The following year, certainly, we may be looking at that, but not for September of 2017.
And what are we going to do with the class size? What are we going to do if the class sizes reach 40, 42 at the middle school? That's going to be acceptable?
Well, I don't know if they're going to reach, we're dealing with their radicals. I don't know if they're going to reach 42.
It's not a radicals. We have huge developments going up.
That's why we have a demographer working on that and plotting it out, and we're working with the demographer on an ongoing basis to make sure that we keep that we plan properly.
And what's the estimate for the end of the school year? What, does he have an estimate for what we're going to be looking at in June when these developments are opened and people are moving in?
We do not have the full report back with us yet.
You also mentioned last night that you don't want to expand the middle school on the current land that we own there because it would create a campus with a high number of students in one area. However, you're discussing having 2 schools in one area on Old Church. What would the difference be? Why wouldn't you consider expanding the middle school on the property you own instead of building 2 new schools?
I just want to interrupt something. I know, we started, and I'm letting this go on, but I'm going to ask you to just state all your questions. We have this one. Do you have another follow-up question so that I'd like to put this back in a uniform kind of a situation? Is there another question you're going to ask after this?
I don't know. It depends on the answer
Well,
I
I
get.
need you to ask, we're
Why?
asking that you ask the questions up front.
I have 3 minutes to come up at
Well,
public forum
you
to
have
speak.
3 minutes to make your statement, ask all your questions, and then we will respond.
Oh, okay, and he's responding.
But it's not a back and forth. I mean, you're asking a question, Dr. Kozak is responding, we're asking you to ask your questions up front. That's what we started last month.
Okay, well, that's a question.
That's your last question?
No. Have you spoken to anybody on the town council yet? I know as of last month, you have not, and I'm wondering if we've spoken to possibly the president of the town council to get an understanding for if the town is actually going to transfer over the land to us. Because I know as of last meeting, nobody has spoken to anybody on town council. It's not been on a town council agenda or a meeting or discussed. My other question, is the IEC program that Dr. Kozak is pushing in curriculum part of the goals that the board has given to him? I'm as confused as the board member sitting in that meeting. If it's a course that we're looking at doing, why would we be asking for money to pay teachers additional on top of their salary? Would this fall into the realm of a regular course? And if it's a club, the first year the staff are volunteers, and after that it becomes a stipend. That's the protocol in Monroe for clubs. So why are we asking for, I think it was $16,000 for the IEC? Last question, can we accept a donation for a course? It was my understanding that donations are not accepted for things that are in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the 3 questions I have regarding town council, my conversations have been with the mayor, and I do have ongoing conversations with the mayor regarding the land transfer and other areas as well. And that's, of course, that is something that the township works on. We have no control over that, but it is something that they are in the process of working on, according to the mayor. The program that you heard tonight, the Innovation Experiential Center, was being proposed as a pilot. It was not being approved. Yes, there was cost associated with that regarding salaries and possibilities for field trips. I think it would be a beneficial program for our students. As far as it being a course, that would have to be something down the line, much further along, if a curriculum was written or the board decided that they wanted to support that as a course. But at this point, it was not. It was just looked at as a pilot program. And the last thing is donations for a course. I would refer that to Mr. Gorski as far as how donations are handled. There are certain principles, and considering that, he received no recommendations, once again, I trust him to handle the finances in an appropriate manner. So we would do whatever is legally allowed as far as accepting donations.
And is the program part of the goals?
Ms. Scarby,
He didn't answer my question. My question was, is the IEC program that's being pushed part of the goals that the board has set?
Okay, I'm not sure what goals you're referring to. Did I set that as a goal? That is part of what I set as a...
The board gave you goals.
That is part of what I set as a goal, yes. But that is not the reason why I'm pushing that. I'm pushing that because, I'm not even pushing it, I'm proposing that because I think it's what's good for kids. And based on visits to other schools and based on information that I have, I think something like that would be an excellent vehicle for our students to have that opportunity. That is the reason behind me proposing that.
All right, thank you very much.
How much time do I have left? I can make a statement as well,
No.
right?
Well, no, you had time to make a statement and ask your questions.
Is my 3
If you want to
minutes
make
up?
a statement, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Well, sitting in that curriculum meeting, I just want to say that I was, like I said, I was very confused, as was many of the other board members, of what exactly was being proposed. I think before you move forward, you really need to figure out, Dr. Kozak, exactly what you're looking at proposing for the high school, whether it's a course or a club. You came this evening asking for money to be supported by the board, and there was a lack of information, a lack of planning, a lack of understanding for what it even was. It was very, very alarming and very disappointing. Yes, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for students to be given an innovative program. However, what was being proposed tonight was going to be for a very small amount of people. You mentioned that it would only be allowed, people would have to, students would have to apply for it. There may be a fee with it. There were so many things up in the air. It was unbelievable that it was brought up at a curriculum meeting at that time when there's not even a plan put in place for it. You couldn't even answer the questions. Is it a course or is it a club? It was absolutely disappointing. Thank you.
Any other member of the public? Let me just state, we're asking that you please make your statement, ask all your questions up front. You'll have 3 minutes. If you don't use the 3 minutes, your time will be up, and then we'll be responding.
Stephen Manfrey, 12 Belmont Court. I'll make my statements up front, 2 of them. First and foremost, happy holidays to the board, to you and your families. The second statement, I have to urge the board president to reconsider his position to make members of the public ask all their questions up front. The type of dialogue, rich dialogue, that is created from this back and forth is extremely important. So insofar as you want to keep folks to 3 minutes, I think that's entirely fair. But to restrict them to not be able to ask questions in rebuttal based on some of the statements made by board members is it's patently unfair. So I would urge you to reconsider that position. My questions. Dr. Kozak, you have referenced some conversations that you've had with the mayor regarding the parcel on England Road. Have you all discussed any other parcels that the township is potentially willing to give to the Board of Education in support of our children?
Is that the only question?
That's one. I'm just holding a pause for effect. The second is we heard that the preliminary wetlands evaluation says that there could be 2 schools on that parcel. I'm curious to understand what makes it just preliminary at this point. Are there additional steps that need to be taken, or has all that research been done? The third question, the wood turtle study is ongoing. When will the wood turtle study be completed? And that's it. 3 questions.
Mike, you want to answer that first one?
Sure, yeah. So the parcels of land, no, we're exploring whatever parcels of land, either publicly owned or privately owned, that we can. We obviously need to house more students. We need a new school or schools. And so we're exploring whatever parcels, and we've had conversations with the township over other sites than just that one. The preliminary study, from the very beginning, we've tried to be as transparent as possible, and that means providing whatever information we have, even if it's not finalized. So rather than wait until the report is finalized, we did want to come out and say, based on what we have right now, the information, it appears that there's enough room for 2 schools. Whether 2 schools would go on the property or not, we did look at that originally for 2 schools, and we looked at other townships with similar size acreage, and they also had 2 schools located on that property, so it is an option. And the turtle study, that has yet to be completed, but to my knowledge, the turtle study, the environmental impact of that would only extend the the area is determined to be wetland, so it would extend it by so many feet or so many yards beyond that. And no, that's not done. We have to wait for that to come back.
And any idea when that is going to come back?
Off the top of my head, no. I would imagine another couple of months.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Andy Paluri, 16 St. James Street. The statement is, the retiring 2 board members, we really appreciate your service to the township. Thank you very much. Comments are essentially regarding the new schools. One of the questions that I have is, I believe the Edwards Engineering Group has been hired to conduct the wetland study, and from what I heard today, the study is complete. Is the study going to be available to the public to review so that we can assess based on some of our knowledge? Again, my questions are going to be based on the fact that how can we assist the Board of Education to move along, to get the new schools into the system. So this is not a confrontational discussion, so I just want to disclose that up front. So can we have the opportunity to review that and see what land is going to be available to do that? And I believe you engaged Brinkerhoff Associates to do the Broad Turtle investigation. And I think I just heard the superintendent say that we don't know the time schedule. My comment is that, in this world, you don't work without a scope, schedule, and a budget. So I'm assuming that when you award the contract to Brinkerhoff, you set certain parameters in place. It would be good to know when Brinkerhoff is going to be completing their study. And also I heard from the statement from the chair that the radius of search for a new school site has been expanded beyond Monroe. Would be curious to know how far are we looking at this in terms of the distance that the kids may have to travel and needs to be bused. Overall, the parent community of students are interested to know the solutions. I know that yesterday in the committee we talked about having a plan. I really would like to see, if I can assist again, whether it's a Primavera or Microsoft, to put down the various activities, when they're going to be done, the time frame, what-if scenarios, to make sure that we have a plan moving forward that we can accomplish in a given time frame and not keep it as an open agenda moving forward. I think we have gone through this for 3 years, and I think we're reaching a point where we need to start making some concrete decisions. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Plur. Good points. Let me just state that as far as the Brinkerhoff study, we haven't received the official document yet, but putting it up on the website is absolutely a good idea. We have nothing to hide from this. And the initial contract with them, I believe, gave them 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, and we had requested to do this as expeditiously as possible, but they still have to do what they have to do. And so this is, as we stated, was just preliminary. Yes, Ms. O'Meara.
In terms of the wetland study, while the people we've hired have done the research, we still have to have a submission to the Department of Environmental Protection, is that correct? Or in the state, and they have to actually review our documents and give a permit. So that hasn't happened yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't believe that we submitted.
I would suspect, Michelle, that is correct. At the end of the day, once the study is completed, you need to do what's called an LOI.
Right. Well, the LOI has to come from the state.
LOI has to be done by us and submitted to the DEP for approval.
Right.
I don't think that's done. Again, the time frame we're looking at is 6 months, 1 year from now, to looking at the site. But I just want to conclude so that the public knows that so far everything appears to be that the site that you're looking at, the 65 acres, seem reasonable to move forward. Is that a fair assessment or not necessarily?
Evening, Mr. Plurry. First of all, as Mr. Ryback said, the wetland study from Brinkerhoff is not complete yet. However, they have communicated to district administration that the initial wetlands maps that we had before this process began, the integrity of those maps seems to be intact, that the wetlands have not exceeded those initial maps, which was very good news because we had some suspicions and we had heard some comments from folks that it had, but according to Brinkerhoff, it has not. We do not have the report yet. That will be an open public record as soon as we receive it and the board accepts it. The timetable for that should be relatively shortly because we're waiting for that information. We had our architect then do some schematic drawings with the wetlands that exist on that property. And very interestingly, he presented to us, and this is how rough we are at this point, that we could actually pick up the footprint for the Monroe Township Middle School with all of the fields, and also Oak Tree School with all of the related fields, and fit it on the area that's not wetland on the new land. Now, it's not our anticipation that we would need that much space, so that was very good information to receive preliminarily from Brinkerhoff. And as far as looking for land outside of the township, we had our attorney do some research on it. I'm going from memory now, but I think she said that we could purchase up to 25 acres of land outside of the township. We have not identified anything outside of the township. There are incredible transportation challenges once you go outside of the township. Even staying within the township, this 40-square-mile township is difficult to get from one area to the other side. So that's where we are with that. We've identified some private pieces of land, as Mr. Ryback said, that appear very promising. But as the board has resolved previously, administration is directed with exploring the 65-acre parcel of land till its fidelity, and the initial news that we received so far from Brinkenhoff, as I'm repeating, was favorable. And more information will be provided as soon as we get it and the board accepts it.
And the last point was the time frame for various scenarios, scenario 1, scenario 2, what if, and then have a time frame for implementation. Is that something that's going to be done and available to the public to review?
It's something that will be done in front of the public at committee level, certainly. And those building, grounds, transportation is always open to the public. So that will be open. I'm sure it'll be discussed during committee reports publicly at the board meeting, and we'll be transparent through the whole process.
Right.
Thank you very much, and happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you. I see someone else waiting.
Good evening, Prakash Parab, 33 Dana Drive. Our vision should be that we should give the best education to our students. And I heard there is a curriculum committee here. So my question is, how is our curriculum compared to the top schools we have in New Jersey, and which have good acceptance rate in the students have good acceptance rate in good universities and are acknowledged. So
can I just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the question, this portion is for the agenda.
Yes, this
items.
is for the agenda curriculum. I heard about the curriculum discussions today. So
Okay.
the question is on the curriculum. Am I clear?
Yeah, here.
So how is our curriculum compared to, should I repeat the question?
You want to know how our curriculum
Yeah,
compares to?
Do you want me to repeat the question?
I think I know the question.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to address that?
Thank you for the question. I think our curriculum compares to the best schools. When I look at what what are considered by many to be the best high schools in the country, I see innovative type programs that afford students an opportunity to have some experience kind of beyond the curriculum, such as possible internships or apprenticeships at corporations, maybe some work with colleges or universities or professors. There's different types of programs. There's shadowing programs, there's visitations, similar to shadowing. There's university professors that might work with the high school teachers or students. And there's opportunities for students to visit programs in the high school or in the colleges or universities. So I think that's an area that, although our students do well based on the standards of standardized testing, let's say, and our college acceptance rate, we get students into good schools. Last year we had a student accepted into MIT. We had a student accepted into, I think, Columbia and Cornell. They're excellent schools. I would like to see more of our students accepted into those schools. I would like to see more of our students to have those opportunities to walk into those universities with the skills beyond the curriculum that we offer. We have an excellent curriculum. We have excellent teachers, excellent administrators, and of course, with the support of an excellent board. But we always want to strive to be better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Ravi Malampalli, 16 Louise Lane, Monroe. I just wanted to echo my support, a strong support for the IEC program. I mean, you see this in the corporate world, right? We bring in summer interns from colleges to get the feel for what the corporate industry does. It doesn't have to be corporate, the regular companies, what they do. I think we should start them much younger when they're in school. Yes, absolutely true. You have to take the school to the next level. We cannot be striving for, we're good enough. So let's go into the next mode and try to get them into the higher schools, better schools, the top 5 or 6, Ivy League schools. And to conclude my statement, my question is, I heard you say that you need some more details. My request is, can you guys look at the IAC program, the pilot that you're planning to, and sort of accelerate that so the current students can benefit from that program earlier than later?
Thank you. Is it a question?
It's a question,
Well,
yes.
that's a question that, we're going to continue to look at that, but it's a question for the board. I will present to the board, and I'll continue in my efforts. They brought up excellent points tonight, and I need to go back and look at that, and I don't think it's a dead issue. With the support of the curriculum committee, I would like to continue that.
Do you think it's something that will be done in the next couple of weeks or months, or?
Well, the board meets once a month, so I would have to wait till our January meeting, which I believe will be later in January.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
and
very
happy
much.
holidays to all of you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Not seeing anyone, we can move on to the superintendent's report and recommendations. Dr. Kosak?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Our esteemed student representatives to the board made mention, thank you very much, of our high school marching band that, they were outstanding. They were invited to the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. I've seen some of the videos. They performed well. I think it's a recognition well-deserved based on their performance at various festivals. My understanding is that people heard the band perform at some of these competitions or festivals and invited the marching band to go out to Pearl Harbor, and I think it's something that we can all be proud of. The students certainly doing a great job. The parents, of course, for helping the students, getting them to their lessons, to band, to rehearsals, the board for supporting them. And we would like to, Mr. Ryback and I have talked about it, if we haven't presented this to the board yet, but we would like to formally recognize the marching band at a future date, possibly the January meeting, if the board would approve that. Again, we're just talking about this now. So we'll make plans and we'll certainly notify people for that. This past Monday, Dr. Alvick, myself, Mr. Goodall, Mr. Madrapola, a number of supervisors, we did go to visit High Technology High School in Lincroft, New Jersey. And that STEM Academy, it's a portion of a larger school district, is recognized or has been recognized 6 or 7 years in a row as the #1 STEM high school in the country. And the principal there was very gracious in giving us about 2 or 3 hours to walk through the school, to talk to teachers, to talk to kids. And we came back with, I think, a lot of very good ideas that we might be able to implement in the Monroe Township School District. I think our kids are just as smart, and we certainly want to share and look at our best practices, whether it be at Lincroft, whether it be at other high schools, just as other districts have visited our high school and our school district to pick up ideas. I think it's always good to share, to look at best practices. So we'll continue to do that. I would like to make a special mention. It was in the Home News Tribune for Matt Mishler being the All-Area Boys Soccer Player of the Year. It's a very nice honor for one of our students. I'm proud to say that our students are continually recognized for their academic achievements and their artistic achievements as well as their athletic achievements. For the board members going to the personnel section of the agenda, I would like to just note a couple items that were new since Friday. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware. They were printed in color or in red, but I think you have copies in black and white because we're always looking at the budget and saving money. We didn't want to make color copies. So. But item U is a new item on there, and it's a return to work for one of our security guards. Item Y is the recommended candidate for the Director of Human Resources that we discussed during the Personnel Committee. Within item Z, Z is one of the tables with all the numbers in there. Mike, you want me to slow down? You okay?
I just said bless you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
And I saw you flipping papers, so
Okay.
okay. Within item Z, number 10 is a resignation replacement. And the only reason I'm mentioning these, they weren't on the agenda that was sent out Friday. These were new things that came in. Under item Z, numbers 22 to 25 are leave replacements. Number 15 under Z also is a retirement replacement. And letter double B, there were 2 additional substitutes that were added. So nothing really out of the ordinary, but things that weren't in place on Friday. Under board action, O is the nepotism policy that Ms. Arminio referred to, the first reading. We had our policy meeting Monday?
It was Monday.
Monday night. And item P is the long-term substitute teacher pay rate change that we discussed in personnel. And Mr. Mayo, is it right for me to elaborate on that for the board?
As long as it's appropriate legally.
Yeah, it's generic.
You can go ahead.
Generic.
Yeah.
It's generic.
Yeah, it's the pay rate that we're proposing, that we're asking for board approval for substitute teachers for long-term, to align what our pay policy is along with the state law as far as being in the classroom for a certain number of days, 20 days or 40 days with a certificate, without a certificate. So we would tier the pay, basically, so that the substitute would be paid either 85 hours or 95 hours a day if they're, depending on their certification, up to the first 20 days if it's a long-term leave replacement. I believe without looking at I think it was $120 a day or $150 a day. And after day 40, doing this from memory, so I know it's right here, it's $200 and some a day, which is equivalent to first-year salary. And that's basically what we're following with the law for that. So I just wanted the board to understand what that was and what you're voting on, because we had the Personnel Committee last night. So that's a new item on the agenda. But it was discussed at Personnel last night. And with that, Mr. President, I would like to conclude that portion of the report, of the superintendent report, and I would like to recommend approval of personnel items A through double B.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. Marcy, you can vote.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Braverman.
Just a minute, please. Till double B, is that what he said?
Personnel items A through double B.
Yes on everything except X. No on X.
Noted, thank you. Mrs. Mayo. Once again, this is personnel items A through double B only.
Can I ask, the STEM Planning Committee, what is that for?
This is to finish the planning. Last year, I stopped the planning for the STEM Summer Academy because we
Okay.
didn't have the enrollment.
Okay.
And I know that I was directed again this year to look at it again for moving forward. So this is picking up where we left off to finish the planning for the academy to go out for the STEM Summer Academy again.
So this is the camp.
Yes, this is the camp. This is the summer camp.
And who directed you to go forward with it again?
I did, and I think we had some informal discussions about this at the end of last year, that some of the problems were maybe the timing of it, and it was my impression that we wanted this to be looked at again for beginning this year.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz?
Yes.
Mr. Nostine?
Yes.
Mrs. Carino?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, I just had a question on why, about the Director of Human Resources. And was the job description changed on that one?
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
No, Mr. Russo, the job description for Human Resource Director was not changed. I think you may be confusing that with staff accountant to accounting clerk changed.
But this person didn't actually hold a resource position previously.
Yes, sir. Person held the human resource position previously, yes.
Did?
Yes.
I thought it was secretary.
Title was secretary, but according to their superintendent, she had responsibilities equal to an assistant superintendent of personnel. Very high qualifications for the position, meets the qualifications as we expressed to personnel.
So she's moving from one school, another Carteret, to this school.
Yes, sir.
Difference in pay between Carteret and here?
Negligible.
Okay. So we do have some people, some staff, who leave other schools and come here.
Yes, we do.
I just wanted to bring that up because every time somebody leaves, we always hear the opposite.
It's usually the opposite. Monroe is a great training ground, and we breed a lot of administrators here. But
Well, she'll be working in your office?
she will be working in the central office, yes.
Central office. Okay. Well, she'll be around very good staff, so.
Thank you.
She made a good choice.
Thank you, thank you, sir.
Okay. So, yes.
Thank you, so noted. Mr. Board President, personnel items A through BB has passed.
Okay, thank you.
Would like to recommend to the board, under board action, A through P.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? I'll make a vote.
Mrs. Arminio?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman?
No on M and O. Yes on the rest.
It's a yes on everything and a no on M as in Michael, O as in Oscar. Thank you. Mrs. DeMayo?
No on O, yes on everything else.
Thank you. Mr. Kaufman?
Yes on everything, recuse on O.
So noted. Mrs. Kolpanowicz?
No on O, and yes to everything else.
Mr. Nostine?
Yes.
Mrs. Carino?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Just a question on P, the change from, was it daily rate? What was the previous and what is the new?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that? Yeah. Okay. So the way we have it that's structured right now, if a long-term substitute comes into the district and it's longer than 30 days, we put them on step one of the salary guide at the beginning, right at the very beginning. And we looked at other districts that do more of a sliding scale. So you would come in on either, it's listed here, 95 or 100, up to $150 a day if they have the proper certification for the first 20 days, actually up to the 40 days before they would go to $246 a day, which is equivalent to a first-year salary. And then beyond that, it's salary and benefits. And I think that's it, yeah, after the 40 days.
And before it was step one, which was equal to what?
I'm sorry.
You said when the substitute entered before, they would start at step one.
Yes. So in other words, if a substitute was coming in for 32 days, we would start the substitute at the 246 hours a day right from day one. This will be a little bit of a cost savings, and they'll start at, let's say, 150 hours a day. Beyond that,
Well, we're saving money,
yes.
so I vote yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Rutsky is absent. I have yays on O, please correct me if I'm wrong, from Mrs. Arminio, Mr. Nostine, Mrs. Carino, Mr. Ryback, and Mr. Russo. That's 5 yays. Motion passes. Board action items A through P, everything is passed. Mr. Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through K be approved by consent roll call.
So moved. Second? I'll second. Any discussion?
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
Yes.
Board President, motion passes. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving to the President's report, I'd just like to take a moment and echo Dr. Kozak's comments about the marching band. It's an incredible honor that our band, our marching band, was chosen to represent the state of New Jersey. And they did it in a wonderful way. They were wonderful examples for their fellow students, the younger students, and the community in general. Way back when, I was a marching band parent in New York, but I know we have a few other marching band parents here, Ms. Quarino, Mr. Notstein, Mr. Kaufman. I don't know if I missed anybody else.
Well, no, Mr. Mayor?
What?
Marching band parent?
No.
No?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, not
Not yet. It's coming.
He's only in 8th
To be-
grade.
And
Right.
we know the amount of dedication that takes. It's a lot of work. I remember loading the truck, unloading the truck, helping that. It's a tremendous amount of dedication, but, look at the results. And these kids, this is something they will always remember, and certainly we have to thank the dedication of the teaching staff as well as the parents, because without them, this wouldn't have happened. So we are planning something special for them, and it's well-deserved. The next item I just want to mention is on a personal note. We will be reorganizing next month, and it's been a year that I've been serving as president. Certainly been an experience, a good one. There's always ups and downs, but I really want to thank all the members of the board here, because we've gelled to be a board of education. We work together. We don't always agree, but we work well together, and I thank all of you because you certainly helped to make this a positive experience for me. So I owe this to all of you, and thank you all very much. That concludes my report. Any other Board of Education business? Ms. Koloponowicz.
Well, Lou knows he's not going to get away easy. But I would like to thank Tom for the service that
Kathy,
you've
use your mic.
Oh, the mic.
So I'd like to thank Tom for his past 3 years of service to our school district, and you did a wonderful job as the finance chair, and I'm sure that all of us appreciate all the time that you put into that, because I know just how much time that takes up. Then Lou, I remember the first day I met you. You walked into Brookside School, and we were terrified of you. And you come yelling at us about technology, and we're like, who is this guy and what's his problem? And the next thing you know, you're running for the board, and you won. So it's been between Marv and me and you, we put in a lot of time, and we've gone through a lot of stuff together, and I am proud that not only were we colleagues, but we became friends. And you have added so much to this district in just the buildings that we put up and the accomplishments that we have done together, and the sense of humor, which I think is important to bring to a board. And I, for one, am going to miss you very much. And I know that you don't plan to come back, but you're going to watch us on the TV when you get a chance. So thank you for everything, and I will miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Mr. Russo?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the thanks, too, to both Tom and Lou. Tom I've known a little longer. Lou, I think, 12 days, because it's 1 year, I get to see him once per month. But not only will I miss the knowledge that they have and that they shared, but the sense of humor, both of you. Comedy team. Anyway, you'll be greatly missed, both of you. Yeah.
Lou, thank you for your years of service. And you're right, there's been a lot of things that have gone on over the years. But I'd also like to thank Tom Nodstein, who brought dignity and respect and fairness and decency to the board. He did a lot of work and self-sacrificing, and always had the best interests of the children and the district in mind, even when it was to his own detriment. I am honored to know him personally and have had him as a board member, and truly this district is losing an extraordinary man, and I, for one, thank you very much. And I know you'll be here as a member of the public, because for the last 15 years you've been a diligent member of the public and very concerned about our community, and I thank you very much.
Go easy on the questions to the superintendent, okay?
Anyone else? Lou?
So,
It's time, Lou.
yeah, it wouldn't be right if I didn't say anything, right?
There's
Thanks.
nobody here.
I know, for those of you who are still here. A couple of things. The new program that we're looking at, it's very exciting. We want to make sure we do it right, because the last thing we want to do is let it out of the barn, have to do a lot of regrouping, a lot of redoing, a lot of re-engineering. So we want to do it right the first time and get it right. So I feel confident that this administration will do the right thing, do the right vetting, do the right due diligence, and get it right going out the door. But on a closing note, seriously, I would like to thank two groups of people. First, my family for putting up with the enormous amount of time that this stuff does take. And especially when I first got on the board, we had a lot of things going on at the time, as Kathy remembers and Marv remembers. So I would like to thank my family and the board members that we have now and the past board members. It was truly a learning experience. But most of all, I'd like to thank the community members. I think I want to thank them for keeping me here, because it's been a long time. There have been a few years where it was kind of up in the air about me running or what have you, but due to significant peer pressure, I was encouraged to keep on. And again, thanks to all the community members for keeping me here this long, because I like to think that I represented them fairly and well. And it's, as some of you board members know, it's not easy to run for board. You know, sometimes you click with the community and sometimes you don't. And to stay on for this amount of time, I don't know, I guess, again, thank you to the community, and good luck for all you guys in the future. It's going to be an exciting few years.
Anyone else? Mr. Notstein?
Well, I would like to echo Mr. Kaufman's sentiment, and I'd also personally like to thank Mr. Kaufman. When I first started going to board meetings was around 2001, and I got to witness his quality of leadership for way back then. So it's been an honor to be able to serve on my short period of time with him. Obviously, he's going to get a much bigger pension than me, but that's how it works sometimes. I would also like to say I really appreciated my short time on the board. It was really an eye-opening experience for me. I learned so much. I learned how the sausage is made, I guess is the best way to describe it. And not always pretty, but it does get made, and I'd like to think that it gets made with the best interest of the community and the students in mind. With that being said, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the administration, because I really got to see the hard work that is involved in running a school district from that side of the fence, from the Dr. Kozak all the way down to all the district staff. and I know it takes the teachers too, but I really didn't have much contact with the teachers. I did see firsthand the effort that goes into running this district, and it is absolutely an unbelievable undertaking. And quite frankly, I don't know how they do it so efficiently and so effectively. I'd also like to thank my fellow board members. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve with you. I need to especially thank, I think, Ms. Arminio, because if it wasn't for her, I would never have been even involved in any type of community advocate, because it does take a lot of work. And if it wasn't for her inspiration and her daily inspiration to me personally, I would not have been here. And maybe some people would say that's good, but that's okay too. So with that being said, it's been an honor and privilege, and I'd like to thank the community for their support, and it was an honor to serve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board member? Well, not seeing any of the board member hands going up. We can move along to the public forum. This is not limited to the agenda. I ask that you state your name, your address, and again, once again, please, if you're making a statement, you have up to 3 minutes. If you finish before 3 minutes, your time will be up. If you have questions, the same thing applies, and then we will be responding.
Not 3 minutes to get there, right?
That's okay.
Good evening, Patty Lang, 74 McFarland Circle. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for the presentation on the budget. That is just an incredible amount of work that's gone into that audit, and to understand and to see where the numbers go and how well you as our Board of Ed have put in our administration, put yourselves together and can present it and explain to us what's going on is paramount, and it's so important. And I think it's really, that's part of what I want to talk about for a second, is that we really need to do as a board, I think, it's just a little bit better of a job of explaining what's going on to people so that they understand that we really do have some great plans in action. But if the public doesn't see that you have these plans in action, or they can't see it on paper, it doesn't make sense to them. It seems like there's inactivity going on. If we don't understand why a project is happening, then it doesn't make sense to us. And as the public sitting on the outside, and in a few weeks I'll be sitting on the same side as the room as you guys, it is a really different perception. So I just wanted to say that. And I know that in the Buildings and Grounds meeting, one of the big things that came up was the lead testing that's being required by the state, which the demands that the state has put on our district, which are it's an unfunded mandate to do this lead testing, which is important because I used to train teachers in the dangers of lead poisoning, and children, the reality is lead poisoning is irreversible brain damage, and it is happening every day in communities all over New Jersey. And I think it's important that parents understand what we're going to be doing with the lead testing, what the unattainable goal of it by the state of New Jersey is to want to know whether or not pipes that have been fixed over 30 years ago have lead solder on them, and just how we're going to be addressing it. So my only thing would be is hopefully going forward as a group, and when I get to work with you guys, and I'm very, very excited to be doing so. And I thank those of you who are leaving the board for opening the door and giving me this opportunity to come in. But I just hope that we can do a really good job of educating the public and letting them know what's going on. Even though they don't get every little bit, they just need a better understanding so that we can have a nicer rapport between ourselves and the Board of Ed. So guys, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lou. I hope you left your questions with Jill like I asked for the EIC. And I look forward to working with you all. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Hi.
Good evening. Timothy Veraska, 7 Collins Avenue. I am the parent of a special education child. I am currently very concerned for his safety. I'm concerned with the violence occurring in his classroom. I'm concerned with the lack of any transparency from the school. I'm concerned the administration has put one child above the rest of the children in that classroom. This past week, my son witnessed his teacher being punched in the head. I was not called. I was not notified. Nothing was said to me. I had to deal with my son trying to explain to me what happened. Being a 7-year-old who's autistic, it's not very easy for him. I cannot understand what is going on and why we are being treated like this. While I'm not the only parent in this situation right now, I am the one speaking. There's not much I can say about this, but to implore you to look into this and why these actions are going with little to no response. While they tell us much can be done, but we can't talk about it, every day my child's safety is in question, and there is nothing they've done about that. I'll leave you with the words my son gave to me on Monday. I'll stop him, Dad. He won't hurt the kids. He's 7. No 7-year-old should have to ever say that to his dad. That's all I have. Thank you.
Let me respond by, thank you for sharing those concerns with us. They will not go unheard. Thank you.
Prakash Parab, 33 Dana Drive. Again, like to acknowledge our marching band. We are very proud. I tell you, my son is not in the marching band, but we were so happy to hear the news, and it was on the Facebook. We are proud. I watch our school kids. We are proud of the new school, high school. We are proud of it, okay? I have 2 questions, okay? To summarize the year, okay? So I'm not asking in a bad way. I want our school to be the best, okay? So don't misunderstand me. I'd like to understand what is the ranking of our high school and middle school this year compared to last year, and what are the opportunities we have to improve and sustain the academic performance of our middle school and high school. Those are the 2 points.
Thank you for your questions. The rankings are a little hard because there's so many different people that rank. There are the journals or news magazines like U.S. News and World Report, Newsweek, and there's certain criteria they look at. Then there's something called niche that ranks schools, and so sometimes they change what they rank the schools on. So it's hard to get a fair comparison sometimes if you look at the different ways the schools are ranked. But I will say, academically, if we look at some of the indicators, such as how do our students perform on the SAT test? How do our students perform on the state park exams? I think our students do well. Dr. Albert gave a full report on that not that long ago, and we have that up on our website. The question is, can we do better? And I think we can. I think, I've mentioned this before to many people, and I keep a sign in my office that it constantly reminds me every single day. And the sign is basically that the road to success is almost always under construction. And the reason why that's important to me is I never want to get to the point where we say, we're good enough. It's never good enough. We can always do better. We can always bring in something else. We can individualize our instruction. We can help each student move further along. We can help students get into better universities. We can give them better skills that'll make them happy in life, and also flexible enough with the proper skills, the habits of mind, the dispositions to enable them to be flexible enough to move with the economy, because it's changing from self-driving cars to Uber to Lyft to Airbnb to SpaceX I can go on and on and on, but we want to provide these opportunities for our students. So I think we need to continually look and say, what are other people doing and can we do better? Even if we rank in some areas, we rank well in one area, maybe it's another area that we need to look at. Maybe it's the arts, maybe it's communication, maybe it's our business or law. So we're going to continue looking at all those areas. I think it's very important. I think it's very important that we not rest on our laurels, if you will, and that we constantly look at what other schools are doing. I belong on social media, on Twitter, in particular, more so than Facebook, because I find that on Twitter I can follow educators from around the world. I can follow the Harvard Business Report. I can follow MIT. I can follow the London Business Journal. I can follow all the types of things, and the conversations that go back and forth, the links, I think is invaluable. So a lot of the educators in the district are using social media for that purpose. And we're going to continue to always look for ways to improve in those areas. And Dr. Alvick, you're very involved with our district. You know, anything as far as how we rank and the middle school that you said, you know, we can't wait to high school until high school to start saying, how do we get our kids into better schools? We really need to look at middle school. And we do a lot with data analysis, and we try to disaggregate that data and look down at every single point. And can we get better in this area or that area? We have an AVID program for students who maybe never considered college. And we try to provide them with the skills that they need that'll help them be successful. And college, across the country, there may be only 34% of Americans that attend a four-year university. So we have to look at those students who maybe aren't considering college, but maybe want to go into a skilled job, you know, another type of job. So we want to provide those students with those skills that they could go to a good trade school or in a technical field that maybe a college degree isn't required for. Of course, we want all our students to experience college, but we recognize that for some students, maybe that's not the path. But it's an ongoing process, and you're asking me something I feel very passionate about. So excuse my long answer for that, but I hope that answered your
Dr. Kozak, I'm very happy. It will be very nice. You have thoughts process going on, thinking going on. You summarize it. If you analyze and provide the information, I know that it will be improving as your thoughts improve. So your analysis, what you're doing, if you could put it in a summary, it will be very nice. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Not seeing anyone else, we can move to the closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects: personnel matter, student residency matters, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Following closed session, action may be taken. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Abstain. About how much time do you think? Half hour. Half hour? Yeah. All right, say 15 minutes to a half hour is all we take. For those that aren't staying, have a happy holiday. Okay, we can resume. I have a resolution. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the suspension with pay of employee number 006553, retroactive to December 5th, 2016, pending further action by the Board. The superintendent and the business administrator, board secretary, are hereby authorized and directed to take all necessary steps to implement this action of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Good vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, I think we need.
Oh, in the roll call, I'm sorry. Do a roll call vote.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman is absent. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman. Abstain. Okay. Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Nusstein.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino. Okay. Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
Well, I'm here, but
You have to
I
abstain.
have to
on that.
recuse myself from,
Recuse.
Yeah.
Recuse.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Mr. Board President, I have a resolution to read.
Yes, sir.
Whereas the administration has applied to the Monroe Township Board of Education for a determination that student number 86478 and student 86477 are not entitled to a free education in the Monroe Township Public Schools, and whereas the Board of Finance Committee held a hearing on December 7th, 2016 pursuant to NJAC 6A:22-4.3E to determine the student's eligibility for a free education in the Monroe Township Public Schools, and whereas on that date, the father of the students attended the hearing and presented evidence on the student's behalf, and whereas the Finance Committee, after having heard and considered all the documentary and testimonial evidence presented, recommended to the full board that it order the removal of the students from the Monroe Township School District pursuant to NJAC 6A:22:4.3 because the students do not reside in Monroe Township. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to NJAC 6A:22:4.3, the Monroe Township Board of Ed accepts the recommendation of the Finance Committee and find that student number 86478 and student 86477 are not domiciled within the Monroe Township School District and therefore are not legally entitled to continue to attend the district schools, and be it further resolved that the board hereby orders the removal of student 86478 and student 86477 from the district.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman. Yes. Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Nusting.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino. Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
Yes.
Board President, motion passes.
Thank you. And we can move on to the public forum. I don't see anyone sitting in the public. I don't suppose you want to ask a question. In that case, we can finally get to the next scheduled Board of Education meeting notice, which is Wednesday, January 4th, 2017, at 7 p.m., right here in the high school. And, yes, a motion to adjourn.
Wait, and
Move
can you
second.
identify what that meeting's going to be for? That's not,
Yes, I'm sorry. That meeting is a reorganization meeting.
thank you.
Yes, Dan. Thank you, Ms. Arminio, for reminding me of that. Now I have a motion to adjourn. Second?
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.
The end, right? The end.